All right, let's just give this a little test, see if things are set up. I got the studio there, got my window here. So just a quick test. How did I get myself set up to capture things I was from a previous, like checking a thought? Um, so I want to stream my ideation process, but should I use Twitch or YouTube? Kind of started there. I got accounts on both. I don't know why I have a Twitch account because, quite honestly, I don't ever play games or care. Oh, I know why I have a Twitch account. It was for a side project. We could probably talk about that later. Where I was a year ago trying to figure out how good AI with video generation was and how to put it all together in a little process to make videos to try and make money. Stupid text to speech stuff, but I got some Python scripts and learned a few things. But anyway, yeah. So with Twitch versus YouTube, I think I'm gonna go YouTube. I got a lot of things set up there. It's kind of where most of my experiments ended up landing. I love how it tells me why. I can kind of just come in, pop it, put some questions, kind of helps guide me through the process. I have used the OBS before. Surprisingly, I've done things on and off with video editing since about 90, gosh, seven. But that's the story for another time. Moving from the analog to digital video processing days. So I've got a little familiarity. I mean, things have become a billion times easier since then, thank goodness. I don't know how we're going to hook into kind of streaming, um, with taking the transcript and feeding it through. I think there's a whole rich vein of ideation there for potentially evaluating tools and building up processes. I think initially my focus is going to be on kind of just getting the tooling up today, figuring out what the workbench is going to look like, maybe some various channels and streams with regards to what's in the experimentation bucket, what's in the ideation bucket, what's in the Rock'em Sock'em kind of small console space where we can explore ideas um, at a pace and comfort where we're just out to ideate, to explore. We can feed those in. They kind of like the factory. I think one idea that keeps floating around my head is this concept of like gold mining and kind of using this as the gold vein and all the machinery that is built up to mine gold, and how do we start doing that even on a small scale if we're taking a pan out and panning and building up to the industrial stuff. Interesting use case. I don't know. That's where my head's been since Friday's bombshell. Good bombshell, just shattered my reality in a few different levels. Yo. Anyway, so yeah, I probably just gonna start off here. Just kind of working through things. YouTube has a 24-hour ban on streaming from my initial account lineup. I'm guessing it's a bot thing, which is fine. While we're just doing this now, and I'll probably just upload it to YouTube when I'm done. Because why the hell not? Um, Doing it into my personal account because that's like I said, everything was configured there. I didn't have to go set any of this stuff up. It's probably not hard. I'm just super lazy. I wanted to kind of get moving on the concept as quickly as possible. So yeah, got the one desktop. I don't really feel like being on camera. I do tend to wander. A lot of my thinking happens pacing. Um, yeah, I'm weird. It annoys people. I get it, but at least you got space to ramble and pace now. And maybe there's a idea of other things in the future, but for now, let's get going. Cool. Okay, cool. So got that in. I got that working. Let's see here. It's telling me I've got to wait until I can stream, which is fine. Kind of working through this stuff, figuring it out. OBS. Yeah, doing good there. It's looking good. What? Is there anything particular I want to start digging into? Well, I mean, I need to still do the talk for work, DevOps, Midwest stuff, kind of formulating my thoughts, trying to coalesce things. Let me bring that document up, maybe, if I can go find it and buried somewhere in the archive of things. Yeah, we'll pop that one over here. Uh, we can talk our way through that just a little bit. So, the role of AI in DevOps, optimizing efficiency and innovation. I think it's really a kind of core role of AI in everyday life. Some themes is kind of me just rolling this idea around, trying to just understand the landscape, and how to make our work easier, effortless, or unnecessary. I think this is really back to, how do we find these small problems to tackle that are going to add value. Like there may be some friction, there might be some annoyances with trying to use a new tool, but I think, we're in the age of innovation. We've kind of moved beyond the age of just software. One idea that's been kind of rolling around my head around this is it's the idea of optimizing value streams, not just processes anymore. So obviously we still need process optimization and all that rolling up, but AI has this weird capability like slime to kind of get into all the cracks and just, help try and move things forward. I'm not sure we're at the stage where it can consistently and reliably, but we're at the stage where we're trying to build muscles. We're trying to understand its utility. We're really trying to push on that. So I think things that make our life easier, effortless, or just unnecessary. You may find a whole lot of things in this process of trying to extract value out of the stream of poop that is my mind, and find ways of kind of getting those nuggets out and expanding on them and producing things people care about. Innovation is necessary to survive in software as a necessity. I think we're all familiar with that concept, right? Like, I mean, that's why we build software. That's why we've been optimizing at the business process level. It makes sense. You take these very manual things. I mean, I remember the days of credit cards being ran on machines and paper and mailed off, all sorts of crazy stuff like that. Like, obviously, that's no longer a case. It's handled by computers. It's done. It's a business process that people very rarely have to think about. And if we do, um, it's probably because we're integrating with it or something when the world's blown up and it's in the news. Uh, Rapid innovation is more important than getting the work done. That's an interesting one, and I don't remember how I landed here. Um, but at the end of the day, I would think some part of an organization needs to be devoted to exploring this rapid innovation. AI is everywhere. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's trying to grapple with this nebulous concept. We've had AI for a while. We've just never had AI like this. And it's starting to change some games. And there's a really interesting research paper I came across last night that I'd like to delve into at some point around, you talk to the machine learning folks, like, oh, it's just neural networks and the maths, and yeah, okay, cool, I get that, but like, there's researchers out there saying that it's building a different model of the world than what we've just given it the tools to build. That's the piece I always like to press on with folks and kind of see where they land. And maybe I'm living in a little bit more of a fanciful world, looking out, trying to be hopeful, but it does feel different. It feels unique and special in what it's allowing me to do. Maybe there's nothing there, but it's expressing a different way of thinking, a different way of interacting that I'm used to that I really want to keep driving and pressing on. So that's kind of the themes I'm rolling around with, trying to figure out how to package this all together. I think at the end of the day, excuse me, one concern would be taking kind of a real easy road here on just, oh, here's some AI here and it's showing up here, and you can expect some changes here, or kind of the more brewing sense of like, let's talk a little bit about just how AI is impacting our life and how it's like affecting our day to day. Kind of shift down into exploring some of the tools and the places that it's appearing. They kind of round out with this idea of like, how do we start operationalizing this? What are we doing to put our eyes towards the concerns of running LLMs, private private models, public models, dealing with prompts, all of that stuff that comes in into the mix now. So just a bunch of kind of initial research around the simple stuff. GitLab's kind of putting some feel good stuff out. And then I kind of started digging into, okay, well, there's this observability concept, and what about prompts, and how are those managed, and those new kind of like the new ORM type concept. If you haven't had the pleasure of working in a world without ORMs, they're great things usually, unless you're trying to get super high performance. In some cases, they just get in the way. But anyway, um, you know, uh, cost, latency, CPU, and memory are these kind of hard metrics we're used to caring about when operating a platform. And Gen AI brings these new kind of what I'm calling meta metrics. Uh, Probabilistic systems need different ways of measuring. Like it's not deterministic. It's not always going to give you X output, and if it's outside of those parameters, there might be a concern. We got to worry about hallucinations, bias, relevancy, We need to worry about how to craft tests to work in our CI to monitor this as well as our environments. What we see is no longer once is not, so we're not really seeing these one-off deterministic type behaviors. Maybe you got to run it 100 times because it is probabilistic to ensure kind of a distribution. Maybe you don't. Maybe there's a better way of kind of narrowing that down and removing some of the probabilistic nature of things, still leaving enough variance to find utility. I think if we keep trying to shove this back into the same way of doing things, we're not going to innovate. We're not going to move. We're not going to unlock the power that's coming. How do we worry about model selection and its impact on what I guess I'm calling OpEx in this line of thought, like the operational side, the costing. Like, great, I've got you a playground and we've got an experiment and, costs are low now, but like, what if I start throwing it out and it's let's just say customer service chatbot and people start using it, outside of the prompt injection or the hacking or the things that are hitting the news that we're always going to hit the news because it's new and people are pushing and want to be at the forefront. There's nothing to be worried about there, in my opinion. How do I start understanding the scale, the impact, the financial costing of this? Like, what lessons can we draw from those previous iterations in our history? You know, cloud migrations and DevOps and those types of things. How can we start getting ahead of that, rolling those lessons in so it's just easier? Makes me better, faster, stronger when working with this. There's an idea in testing emails, probabilistic. I think we touched on that. Kind of there's an interesting concept of the AI engineer. I think that's quite an intriguing space, and that we're going to be pulling people potentially from the DevOps community and from the machine learning community and from the traditional like product or line of business engineering community, or maybe even other people, product and other non so tangentially connected engineering disciplines into this new space. And there's going to be new concerns and it's going to be new things and new concepts for people as they cross over and through and who owns what and what goes where type of conversations. And I think it's interesting to frame around this as an AI engineer. It's kind of that divergence from being specialized in the front end versus being a full stack generalist. And I think it's important. I think there's a space there. Maybe we'll further refine the product needs and the ops needs, and maybe we won't. Maybe it will start off as this kind of polyglot type role where you got to know a little bit about everything to make it work. Certainly feels that way anytime we start pushing new innovations. You got to have the drive and the desire to really be sufficient and be able to kind of glue things together and try to make it work. But that's full blown models. I think there's even value at GPT level and getting it to connect into services like Zapier or publishing APIs. Great talk by someone at the local user group about just connecting in and getting it to tell you the weather and kind of just showcasing the power of how you can still build utility with this new engine, this new component that we have. Very simply without having a lot of technical expertise and probably even prototypally, like getting in. I think we're going to see a rise in the playground and what happens there is a means for increasing innovation. And then I kind of get into some five pillars of for the talk. These were the ones ChatGPT gave me. They're okay. I'm not super sold on them. We can get into some more links that came about through Slack and also came about through attending one of the web conferences by ML Ops. Some interesting stuff here, some product, some framework. Here's one. It was a Remix AI. So this is Gen AI reducing the cost of ML deployments. I thought this was really an interesting bit of idea. How can you augment data sets with synthetic data? That's going to, I think, become a really interesting line of thinking in 2024 here. We're seeing it with, if you dig under the covers a little bit on how was it Samoa, I think that's the name of it. Probably got that wrong. OpenAI's new video generation tool came out. I love the hype around this. I love how, in one sense, people are like, "Oh, this is amazing," and obviously, the next day, people are like, "Oh, yeah, but if you dig it, it's crappy and it's not doing a perfect job." Of course, it's not. Like they've given you they're showing you the possibility by showcasing the best examples, and then obviously because it's first generation tech, not all the examples are going to be good. There's going to be things it's bad at, but look at the tech. Look at how it's putting together. Look how it's understanding. This is where it gets creepy. Like it's been fed 2D images, but now it's building 3D concepts, and it's starting to understand parts of physics, and it's really intriguing how these models are starting to develop, kind of formulating their own models of what we're feeding it that differ from just kind of the raw interaction. It's almost an expression of learning that's happening, being able to kind of take that raw input and model it differently into a way that makes more sense to you. I ain't no scientist. Just talking about what I see and what's showing up in the papers. Augmenting, auto labeling. I mean, these all seem like really important things in the machine learning side. I mean, the closest I've gotten back, more BI type stuff where you're trying to scrub a whole bunch of data, um, figure out what's good, what's bad, what needs to be repaired, as you bring it into a larger data source to do some kind of further business processy type thing on it. Mining your data for a while was a popular term, or I used to call massaging your data. Well, before you get to mining, before you get it aggregated, things change, concepts remain the same. Some orchestration, LLM with tools. How do you pair LLMs with tools? I think this is really the other interesting piece I want to see some more work on in 2024 is how do I work within the realms of these probabilistic systems to get almost deterministic results like a person. Like, how can you give it a set of instructions, get it trained on kind of doing that thing to repeatedly kind of execute that task while still having the freedom and flexibility to make um, lower level decisions as it relates to the output of that process. And I think back to that dev chat where they kind of give a little system around agentic software, and it's trying to produce games for you. And it's an experiment. It's not doing a great job all the time. Sometimes it's doing interesting work. Sometimes it's doing really crappy work. But taking that and kind of being able to further build out teams, doing more work with less people. In this case, they're just talking about nearly defined functions, job calls, like things like that. I think there's an interesting space there. Figuring out which models users want to deploy in this case. Chatting with people, understanding their needs, knowing if there's a few tools there. Like, yeah, it's interesting. It is a talk, probably a bit marketing, a bit hopeful, but it's an interesting direction to be taking things. Optimizing deployments, model tuning. I think this is interesting, being able to get in, do some finer grained model tuning, start to address some of these common ML concerns with LLMs and using it to just act as that catalyst to make work in that space faster. My experience has been it's always been slow, expensive, and the results are meh at the end of the day, especially if you're doing any kind of innovative work outside of the more well-known spaces. Then I get into the abstract, and I've kind of tried to get an outline put together. Once again, it's not very good. It's been a matter of kind of understanding the landscape and getting to grips with what's going on there and how that all comes together. Yeah, so what I've been rambling for almost 20 minutes. It's probably been a good little test. We'll stop it there.